Nike eventually expressed regret to Caitlin Clark, but let's face it, this goes beyond a banner or a large advertisement. Throughout an arena, no, there is much more to it than that. For months, fans have been wondering why Nike, the world's largest sports brand, has kept silent about its most promising young star, and to be honest, the silence has been deafening. This Nike billboard honors the all-time NCAA Division I scoring leader. I love that. Nike appears to be rushing to make up for lost time now that Adidas has apparently stepped in with a sizable offer, but the real question is, was their apology sincere, or are they only responding out of concern that they would lose Clark to a rival? Nike struck absolute gold when they signed Caitlin Clark to an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal. So why in the world? Let's go back a little now. Women's basketball's breakout star Caitlin Clark had an amazing season. She led her team to new heights, shattered records, and enthralled audiences while playing with an electrifying flair that makes her more than just a player. She's a game changer. Given that Nike signed her to a huge contract, you would imagine that her first playoff game would be the most viewed WNBA playoff game since 2000, drawing 1.84 million viewers. However, that is not the case.
Gone.
And with that, Nike has not done one thing to promote her. We have not seen any commercials. We have not seen any ads. We have not seen any Caitlin Clark merchandise. And we for sure as hell have not seen any Caitlin Clark. For months, Nike did very little to promote Clark. There were no large shoe releases, campaigns, or major ads, and fans were left wondering what was going on. It was strange how they handled LeBron James when he first joined the NBA. They wasted no time in creating a signature shoe for him, running advertisements everywhere, and making sure his face was displayed on billboards all over the nation. However, with Clark's crickets, this is where things started to get interesting. While Nike was sleeping, they saw an opportunity. Rumors began to circulate that Adidas was prepared to make a $30 million offer for Clark. Adidas saw what Nike had missed and saw the opportunity to position Clark as the face of women's basketball, much like they had LeBron as the face of men's basketball. Let's face it, Adidas wasn't going to stand by and watch Nike continue to make mistakes. So what happened next? After months of ignoring Clark, Nike finally woke up and slapped a huge banner of her at the Indiana Fever Arena. This was a grand gesture, to be sure, but let's not be fooled. This wasn't just a celebration of Clark's achievements, it was Nike's attempt to prevent her from switching to Adidas, and it wasn't subtle either. Nike was in full-on damage control mode. There are some concerns about the timing of this apology. For many supporters, this feels more like a response to Adidas' interest than a sincere display of support for Clark because Nike had months to promote Clark and her amazing season, but they waited until there was a true possibility of losing her to a competitor before making their move. It seems as though Nike panicked when they discovered they were about to lose one of the most recognizable basketball players, but this is where things become even more interesting. Rather than simply accepting Nike's abrupt change of heart, Clark didn't just sit back and let them dictate the terms. Instead, she showed up at their event and gave a speech that left everyone buzzing. Clark used the opportunity to discuss the future of women's basketball, pointing out how the sport is expanding with packed stadiums, increasing viewership, and fans who are finally beginning to buy into it in a big way. Clark also underlined the significance of women's basketball receiving national television attention, emphasizing that this isn't just a fad and that the more times the sport is featured on a large platform, the more it will flourish. It's evident that Clark is considering the wider picture and isn't just focused on her own career. She is also supporting the sport as a whole, which is where her upcoming signature shoe comes into play. It's not just any shoe, though. It's based on the legendary Kobe Bryant line. That's right. Fans have been waiting impatiently for Clark's signature sneaker for months, and now that it's finally happening, it feels like Nike is making up for lost time. However, the best part is that this shoe should have been released months ago. Nike had the ideal chance to take advantage of Clark's incredible season, but instead they sat on their hands. Nike is linking Clark to one of the greatest players in basketball history. Fans are feeling a little dubious about the entire situation. Was this enormous banner and the promise of a signature shoe a sincere apology, or was it just damage control? Now that Adidas has entered the picture, Nike is rushing to get things back on track, but it feels like they've only realized how valuable Clark is because Adidas was prepared to steal her away. Nike has a history of giving preference to its male athletes over their female stars. Just take a look at how they have treated LeBron James and Kevin Durant in comparison to athletes like Serena Williams or even Diana Taurasi. The difference is that had Clark been a man, Nike would have undoubtedly been all over her from the moment she signed that contract. This suggests that Nike was more concerned about losing their golden goose than genuinely supporting her from the beginning. Although Nike's abrupt decision is a positive one, it seems like it comes too little too late. Adidas has already made their intentions clear and is establishing themselves as the company that genuinely cares about women's sports. They see the value in athletes like Caitlin Clark and aren't afraid to invest in them. If Nike wants to keep Clark, they will need to do more than just put up a billboard and release a signature shoe. They must demonstrate to her and the rest of the world that they are serious about promoting women's basketball and treating their female athletes with the same respect and support that they give their male stars. The onus is now on Nike to step up and give Caitlin Clark the recognition she deserves, or will Adidas intervene and permanently take her away? All eyes are on Clark right now because she is not just a basketball player but also a trailblazer who is changing the game both on and off the court. Whether she chooses to stay with Nike or move to Adidas, one thing is certain. This battle between Nike and Adidas is far from over and will only get hotter from here. There is no denying that Caitlin Clark is the face of women's basketball, and the companies supporting her will have a significant impact on how that future develops. It's intriguing that Nike made the abrupt decision to mend their connection with Caitlin Clark, but the bigger concern today is how this conflict between Adidas and Nike could permanently alter the women's sports scene. Let's face it, brands like Nike haven't given women's basketball the attention it deserves. They've treated their male athletes as the big money makers and given the women a fraction of the marketing budget. If you like the video, then subscribe to the channel. But with Caitlin Clark at the center of this new storm, things are starting to shift, and it's about time. Adidas didn't just see an opportunity. With Clark, they saw a movement. They understood that women's sports are gaining traction like never before. Viewership is up, fan engagement is at an all-time high, and people are finally tuning in. Adidas recognized that Clark wasn't just a rising star, she was the face of a revolution. Offering Clark a $30 million deal wasn't just about getting her to wear their shoes. It was about aligning themselves with the future of women's basketball and positioning their brand as one that truly supports female athletes. But for Nike, the stakes are even higher. They've always been the dominant player in the sportswear market, and losing Clark to Adidas would be a huge blow. Nike prides itself on being the go-to brand for the world's top athletes, and if they let Clark slip through their fingers, it would signal to the world that they're not as invested in women's sports as they claim to be. Let's talk about why this battle matters so much. Caitlin Clark is more than just a famous player. She is a symbol of the future of women's basketball. Her performances on the court have electrified the sport, and her games have consistently attracted large audiences. But her influence off the court is just as important. Clark is an inspiration to young girls everywhere who aspire to play professional basketball, and the companies that support her will be viewed as trailblazers in the struggle for gender equality in sports. This isn't just about selling shoes. It's also about changing people's perceptions. For years, women's sports have been neglected while brands have invested much more in their male athletes. But things are starting to change, and Clark's success shows that more people are watching women's games, purchasing jerseys, and supporting female athletes than ever before. However, let's not forget that Nike has made some serious mistakes. Even though they finally put up that enormous billboard of Clark, the damage may already be done. Fans were irate for months, wondering why Nike was remaining silent while Clark was setting records left and right. They felt like Nike was taking her for granted, and that can't be easily fixed with a flashy ad. This is where Adidas has an advantage because they have been developing a reputation as a company that actually supports women's sports. Their possible offer of $30 million to Clark demonstrates that they are doing more than just talking the talk. Adidas has made it apparent that they consider women's basketball to be a significant business and are prepared to invest in it. This kind of dedication is difficult to overlook, particularly given how hesitant Nike's support has been at best. But now that they're finally understanding that they can't afford to lose Clark, Nike is working really hard to keep her. The question is, though, is it too late? Has Adidas already won the fight for Clark's devotion, or can Nike persuade her to stay? For her part, Caitlin Clark appears to be playing it smart. Rather than rushing into anything, she is using her platform to discuss the future of women's basketball. At Nike's recent event, she made it clear that she is not only focused on her own career, but also on the sport as a whole. She is advocating for increased fan engagement, national television exposure, and investment in women's basketball as a whole. This is what makes Clark so powerful. She's not just a great player, but also a leader who recognizes that her success is linked to the success of the sport as a whole. She is using her platform to push for change. Whether she stays with Nike or moves to Adidas, one thing is for sure. Caitlin Clark will have a significant impact on how women's basketball develops in the future. Let's talk about those signature shoes once more. As we all know, a signature shoe is more than just a piece of merchandise. It's a statement. When Nike gives an athlete their own line of shoes, it says that the athlete is a star and worthy of investment. However, for Clark, receiving a signature shoe goes beyond personal achievement. It's about what it represents for women's basketball as a whole. When LeBron James got his first signature shoe, it was a game changer. It showed the world that Nike was all in on him, that they saw him as the future of basketball. Now Clark is in a similar position. If Nike wants to show that they're serious about supporting women's basketball, they need to give Clark that same level of investment. A signature shoe would do more than just boost Clark's profile. It would signal to the world that Nike is finally ready to put women's sports on the same level as men's. But there's still the question of timing. Fans have been waiting for months for news of Clark's signature shoe, and Nike has been dragging its feet. Meanwhile, Adidas has made it clear that they're ready to go all in on Clark if she decides to make the switch. And let's be real, if Adidas gives her a signature shoe before Nike does, it's going to be a major win for them. So, what does all of this mean for the future of women's sports? Prior to Clark's rise, major brands frequently ignored female athletes in favor of their male counterparts. But now they are beginning to recognize that women's sports represent a sizable, untapped market. And athletes like Clark are demonstrating that there is a sizable audience just waiting to be reached. Whether sincere or not, Nike's apology shows that they're beginning to understand that they can't afford to lose Clark, and they're finally taking action to promote her the way they should have from the beginning. However, only time will tell if this is enough, as everyone's attention is on Clark and her decision in the upcoming months. Regardless of what happens, one thing is certain. Caitlin Clark is more than just a basketball player. She's a force of nature, and she's changing the game both on and off the court. Whether she stays with Nike or switches to Adidas, she will have a significant impact on the direction of women's sports, and brands are finally realizing how valuable she is. Let us know in the comments if you think Nike will finally give Clark the promotion she deserves, or if Adidas will step in and take her. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on this unfolding story. Nike has issued a big apology to Caitlin Clark, but the question still stands. Was it sincere, or were they just responding to Adidas' offer? We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and subscribe my channel.